Here at Unity, we have the most amazing people connected with us. And it's because, and I say that because this morning, Virginia says to me, I don't know what Huron's going to sing. He said he's going to come in and read the room. And I said, great! And there it is. It's great. It's beautiful. And that's how it works, doesn't it? We read the room. We read one another. We connect. You read my mug. Yes, he read the mug. He read Erlene's heart mug. So here we are. We come together, and we are here for the second week of our 5-week series on Unity's 5 basic principles. And, these aren't dogma. These aren't things that you have to adhere to in order to be a participant in the unity movement. These, however, these are truths that support us, that support our journey, that allow us to start seeing who and what we are and how we actually interact in this world and how, I dare say, create our world. Which I think is pretty amazing that we have this kind of wrapped up into 5 things. Still not sure how this happened, but it did. So just to review, the 5 basic principles. The first one is God is absolute good, everywhere present. You can't get away from it. Even if you try, you can run, you can bury yourself, you can hide. You're still not getting away from that presence that is God. Humans are created in God's image. Our very essence is divinity. Therefore, we are inherently good. We create our life experiences through our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Through prayer and meditation, we align with God, and we must live the truth that we know. We must take action. So last week, Art so beautifully and passionately kicked us off because, again, we have lots of talent at Unity of Wichita. And it's true. And so he talked a lot about being able to set aside your connection with the Word God, setting aside your language. And for me, I didn't know it until I took a class here several years ago. I think it was the first class I ever took. And the person teaching asked the question, they said, what is God? How does it make you feel? And that was the first time I realized, ew. It makes me feel oppressed. It makes me feel like somebody's judging me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And I never knew that I didn't like that word God. I'm okay with it now. But having someone give me the permission to acknowledge that it's language, and it's okay if I don't use the word God, it's okay if I use the word creator, or if I substitute the word love. I love that saying that we as human beings are animated stardust. And so being an artist, every time that I create an image, there's a part of me that goes into that image every single time. Even if I'm making it for a specific person, there is a part of me that is infused in that image forever. And that's how I think about God. I think about the great stardust animator creating us, creating our bodies, and ultimately creating this mesh, this working together, creating oneness. Oneness within ourselves, with God, oneness with one another. And so it brings us to the question, what am I? What are we? Well, according to the 5 basic principles, we are the essence of divinity. We are inherently good. We are the presence of God. One of the obvious places to look for the answer to this question is the book by Imelda Octavia Shanklin. Who's heard of her? Woohoo! A few. So this book is called What Are You? And I would encourage you to check it out. You can get it at the Unity Library back there. But she very simply and very confusingly talks about the personal versus the impersonal. And the personal is what we would call our ego. My name is Samantha Jones. I'm an office manager, sometimes speaker. I'm an artist. I'm a mom. And the impersonal being, our spiritual being, our inner truth, that I am a spiritual being, as she puts it, who has forgotten its divine identity, a soul who is struggling to remember, and in the midst of time and in the confusions of experience, that I am the living son or daughter of the living God. That I am that, and you are. And I love that she takes it from a space of ego versus our reality and truth, because when we talk about how I am the presence of God, have you ever done that around other people? Outside of Unity, I mean. There's lots of giggles. I don't know if that's a yes or a no. We had some Jehovah's Witnesses come to the door. I think it was on Friday. And it was dinner time. We were being interrupted. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I wonder what would happen if I just went up and said, I am the presence of God. Who are you? I didn't. I was eating with my son. I let Grandma take care of it. It was her house. I didn't want to label her house, the place that needs more visitors. But I thought to myself, what if I did do that? How would I respond to the accusation that I'm being blasphemous? How can I say that I'm the presence of God? And so Ellen Davenport so beautifully, what was that? How can I not? That's a wonderful question. And so Ellen Davenport, again, Art introduced this last week as well. I know many of you are familiar with this book, but it's Ellen Davenport's The 5 Unity Principles. And I would encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. It's a really good read, and it's quick, but powerful. So I wish I would have been thinking, because I would have gone out to the front porch and had a conversation, had I been thinking. I love this response. People who insist that humans are divine are often accused of thinking that they are God. The secret is, we are. Did you know? Just as every tree is God in expression. Just as every sunset or newborn child or act of mercy allows us to witness the divine, we too are expressions of God on earth. Now, in my mind, If I were to say, I'm still working on it. If I were to say, I am Samantha, the presence of God, I'm okay with that. If I were to say, I am Samantha, the God, I don't know how I feel about that. It's that shift from expression to claiming to be, where I think people get caught up. And it becomes something that causes fear to stir up. And when we're asked by someone, so what is unity? How often do you say, well, unity is a group of people who recognize that they are God? Do you? No? Okay. Just checking. What if we did begin to say that? What if we did start to commit and say to our friends and family who we've been inviting to unity because we know that these 5 basic principles and the ideals and just the love and support would enrich their lives in a way that they can't even fathom yet? What would happen if we were to say to them, it is truly a group of people who realize that they are the absolute expression of God. They are the expression of God, which makes them, all of us here, and even those who are committing crimes, who are hurting us, even they are the expressions of God, and they too are inherently good. I don't know about you, but I remember the first time that I heard this, and I kind of imagined this happening, but it was backwards. It was that I was all of a sudden being knocked down by this bright light, slamming into me. Oh, I'm the presence of what? Because from a very young age, and I know I'm not alone in this, well-meaning adults who I loved, who I admired, would make judgments about my action or the things that I said. And it is truly well-meaning. We think about when we see my son, for example, running through the church, usually with a sweeper. And somebody says, oh, aren't you a good little boy? Cleaning up. Mom's so lucky. We don't have one of those sweepers at home. But then we take the sweeper away. Uh-oh. Now there's no smiling. There's a lot of fit throwing and maybe even laying on the floor, kicking and screaming. And of course, the parent is slowly getting smaller. While there's a judgment coming, perceived, it may not be there. But as a parent, I feel it, that, gosh, what a little brat. Now, if I'm feeling that, and he and I are so closely connected because, well, he's the presence of God, as am I, and you, and if I'm feeling that in my personal experience, remember that's presented as ego, then inevitably, my fear is that I'm going to express that to him. And I know I have. I'm sure I have, because I'm a human mom. But I've become so aware of the fact that I need to be cautious with that because he is good. And he's inherently good, and he was born a blessing. He was not born as a burden. He was not born into sin. He was not born into condemnation. He was born into experience of love, celebration, and experiencing all the gifts of this place and all the gifts that we have to offer. So I have to remember, try not to tell him that he's being bad. How many of you remember that? You're being a bad little girl. Lots of heads nodding. So it makes sense that here we are as adults and we hear that phrase that we are inherently good. And there's a bit of a, am I? Because I remember my mom telling me that I wasn't. Or I remember my first grade teacher telling me I wasn't. Again, well-intentioned. So here we are, gods. Say it with me. I am the presence of God. You are the presence of God. Now, who loves eyeballs? Me too. One of my favorite meditations is called the pear meditation. Anybody done it? Nobody? Wow. This is going to be fun. Okay, so just for a moment, I need you to turn to a neighbor. Look at someone near you if you're not near someone. Focus in on the eyes. We're focusing in on the eyes because these are the windows to our soul. These are the windows to our impersonal being, our spiritual being. And in the pairs meditation, you sit and you look. You sit and you look and you just breathe. And as you're looking, you maintain that eye contact. You maintain a constant vision. And what we see happening is that there is a release of the body. There's a release of the awareness that we are separate. We begin seeing ourselves and one another. We begin recognizing something in someone that perhaps we don't even know. We begin to see and experience the absolute good, love, and infinite presence of that divine creator, of the stardust animator, creating for us this place. Are you guys ready to let go of that gaze? I'm really proud of you. That went well. You guys lasted longer than I thought you would. The pairs meditation lasts about 20 minutes. And let me tell you, the first time I did it, I laughed hysterically. First out of nerves, then out of recognition that I was seeing something so fluid, something so connected between I and this person that I barely knew, and then we both were in tears because it was so beautiful that we were seeing who, or rather what, we are. Finally, we move to 1 Corinthians 3:16. Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells within you? We are the very presence of God. We are inherently good. And we are able to communicate that in oneness and in peace with one another. And so it is. Thank you.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good.